More than 3,000 people have been evacuated in China's Yunnan province after a landslide dammed a waterway, creating a dangerous barrier lake. The dammed lake poses a serious risk of flooding to communities downstream, prompting residents there to flee for higher ground. Authorities say the water rose 3 meters in just 7 hours, but that levels have since stabilized.
Ça fait quoi ça? Plus d'un mètre, 1m20, 1m30 à peu près.
Tout plein d'eau en bas, en haut non, mais en bas tout est perdu. Il faut tout jeter en bas, tout. Les frigos, la télé, le bahut de la salle à manger, tout, il faut tout jeter.
Se retrouver dans le noir complet, d'ouvrir les fenêtres de l'étage et d'entendre les gens crier à l'aide parce que ils étaient embarqués dans l'eau et tout. C'est psychologiquement très compliqué à supporter, quoi.
Flash floods caused by a heavy downpour that began on Monday have led to a total of 128 families from more than 10 villages in Baling Kedah to be evacuated. This also led to 492 villagers being placed in several relief centres after the continuous rain hit the district. Baling District Disaster Management said the water has reached the depth of 1.5 metres, hindering the relief efforts. The floods in Kedah also affected other districts including Kota Setar, Kubang Pasu and Pendang.
هذه السيول أن تأتي إلى هذه الأماكن أول مرة نراها، وتحدث اللي هم في كبار متقدمين في السن قالوا أن هذه السيول أول مرة تصير مثل هذه السيول. ناس موجودين يعني داخل في عوائل، ونشدنا غرف العمليات اتصلنا عليهم، إلى الآن لم يصلنا أحد.
الوضع الآن شبه محصورين أو محصورين يعني على المنطقة هذه كلها محصورين، السير من الخلف ومن الأمام، ونحن الناس في حالة حتى جهودنا وأولادنا وبناتنا شلوناهم كل البنات.
With Orange County reporter Michelle Geely in Tustin, where a tree fell and killed a woman this morning. Michelle.
Awful story here in Tustin. A neighbor says that he saw a woman seconds before this happened. He wished her a good morning, and then he heard a terrible sound. That was this tree snapping. Let's roll the video to show you that now. The tree then fell. The man ran to try and save this woman, his neighbor, but she was gone. We know the victim from the Orange County Fire Authority is 34 years old. She was backing her car out of the carport at the Waterstone Apartments on Red Hill in Tustin when a 40-foot-high eucalyptus snapped and crushed her in the driver's seat. Danny McCabe is with me now. He is the man who saw this all happen. And Danny, you tried to save her?
Yes, As soon as I saw the car crushed, the neighbor said there's somebody in there. I ripped off the branches and asked, "Hello, ma'am, can you hear me?" And I checked for a pulse in her wrist, and I checked for a pulse in her throat, and I couldn't feel any, and there was live wires behind the car, and there's nothing I could do.
How strong was the wind at that time?
Very strong. It just pushed me so hard I was almost walking backwards. I was walking my dog.
Very sad day for you and all the neighbors today. Danny, thank you. The Orange County Fire Authority is saying that this is a major problem throughout Orange County. Downed trees, a woman's leg was crushed. Also in the city of Tustin, another tree down on a car in Santa Ana. And there are multiple streets with live wires down, making it very, very hazardous for people on the roads today. That's the latest live here in Tustin. I'm Michelle Gili.
In one of the deadliest mountaineering accidents to hit the Himalayas in recent years, at least 8 members of a South Korean climbing expedition have been killed. On October 12th, a violent snowstorm reportedly swept the climbers, 4 South Koreans and 4 Nepali guides, off a cliff on Nepal's Mount Gurja. Officials confirmed a 5th South Korean climber at the camp is missing and presumed dead. One Nepali official said it seems no one is alive. The New York Times reported rescuers in a helicopter spotted the bodies of 8 climbers near the Mount's base camp, more than 11,000 feet above sea level on Saturday. But because of strong winds and the remoteness of the area, they were unable to land. Meanwhile, CNN reported local villagers retrieved at least 6 of the bodies. Kim Chang-ho, a decorated climber who had scaled the world's 14 tallest peaks, including Mount Everest, was among the dead. For Global One, I'm Juliette Vara.
Pepper, could you please introduce yourself?
Good morning, Chair. Thank you for inviting me to give evidence today. My name is Pepper and I'm a resident robot at Middlesex University.
What is the role for humans in the 4th Industrial Revolution?
Robots will have an important role to play, but we will always need the soft skills that are unique to humans. Thank you very much for an interesting discussion and for the opportunity to give evidence to the committee today.
Thank you.
Meet Rosie, the security robot, using the same technology as a self-driving car to patrol the sidewalks of Lefrak City in Queens.
This is a crazy combination of artificial intelligence, self-driving autonomous technology, robotics, analytics, in something that is actually useful for society.
The company has built its 3 robot models in the United States and is introducing them to customers inside a new showroom at 47th Street and Lexington Avenue in Manhattan.
I thought it was pretty cool, but I didn't really think much of it. I didn't even know what it was. I just thought the thing was just patrolling around.
They're also deployed at LaGuardia Airport. Each robot has 5 security cameras, 4 of which help it see things. The 5th one collects thermal imaging data. All of the information going into an internet-based portal that helps local security forces on the ground.
You just can't keep adding more people. Oh, and we're just keep adding more vehicles and more officers. It's just not going to happen. Like, society literally can't afford this.
The robots are able to observe people walking on sidewalks, record license plate numbers, detect heat and objects, and see which cell phone serial numbers are within a designated patrolling area. Nightscope says the data is secure and only seen by the agency controlling the robot. They can stop it and tell it what to look for. Of course, privacy concerns abound.
People could just reboot it or something.
I think this place needs security.
Lee grew up in Queens and says the 9/11 attacks began his thinking about how to improve security across the country.
I'm still really, really upset about it. We're starving for new technology to try to alleviate the problem.
From city streets to corporate campuses, Lee says the security team of the Futures helped agencies catch an accused sexual predator, robbery suspect, and vandal in the act. The company says it costs between $6 and $12 an hour for a new robot to hit the streets. In Manhattan, Clark Foraker, CBS 2 News.
So these robots are deployed right now in 16 states, working alongside local security teams in an effort to reduce crime.
They say the data is secure. You just have to see it.
Canadian transgender athlete is facing a backlash after winning the Cycling World Championship. Rachel McKinnon, who was born male, finished first in the race in Los Angeles this Sunday, becoming the first ever transgender woman to win gold in the competition. But her achievement was met not only with applause.
Unfair advantage and not to be celebrated. Look at the difference in size and muscle mass. Of course you were going to win.
Imagine being the woman who came fourth, knowing that you should have a place on that podium.
Amazing! I was so enthused at reading this. I went out and challenged 2 8-year-olds to a 100-meter race. Guess what? I only went and won. First time running in an 8-year-old's race, too.
The Archdiocese of Washington posted a list of 31 priests it says have been credibly accused of sexual abuse of minors. The alleged abuse dates back to 1948. On Monday, embattled Cardinal Donald Wuerl said the list was a painful reminder of the grave sins committed by clergy, the pain inflicted on innocent young people, and the harm done to the Church's faithful. He also noted that there haven't been any sexual abuse allegations against a priest in the Archdiocese in almost 2 decades. This is just the latest sexual abuse scandal the Catholic Church has faced. In August, a Pennsylvania grand jury released a report accusing Wuerl of reassigning and reinstating some priests accused of abusing children during the years he served as the Bishop of Pittsburgh. That report also accused over 300 priests of sexually abusing more than 1,000 children. Pope Francis accepted Wuerl's resignation on Friday, but asked Wuerl to stay on as an apostolic administrator until his successor is chosen.
At noon, a 12-year-old girl is in police custody accused of making threats to shoot up 2 schools in South Florida. The girl telling police it was just a prank and she was put up to it.
But police say it's no laughing matter and she's now facing the consequences. CBS 4's Carly Barnett is live in Davie with reaction to the arrest. Carly.
Maribel, Lauren, this is now the second threat made to the same 2 schools in the course of just 1 week. A Nova Middle School student is in the Juvenile Assessment Center today after she threatened to shoot up both the middle and the high school. I spoke with some students and I spoke with a parent, and they say they just want school to be a place where they feel safe again. Nova Middle and high school students arrived to class on Monday morning, met with officers and police cars.
I'm just tired of all this. I want it to be done.
Sophomore Emma Kakamo says the continual threats of school violence are not something she should be used to, but she is.
It makes me nervous to come to school, makes me not want to come to school, like it's that kind of thing. So I don't like how it's affecting our school life.
This comes after Davie police arrested a 6th grader at Nova Middle School early Monday morning for threatening to shoot up the middle and high schools. The department sent out a tweet around 3:30 a.m. saying, regarding the social media threat posted on 10/14 directed at Nova High School and Nova Middle School, Davie police detectives have investigated and taken a suspect into custody. There is believed to be no further threat and students are safe to return to campus where officers will be present. A police report says the 12-year-old posted 11 threatening messages on Instagram with expletive language in which she targeted specific teachers and classes and showed a picture of guns. She said things like, "Pulling out a gun, I'm so happy, take me to jail," and "Who ready to die?" Police tracked the IP address of the Instagram account to her phone. Jinsey Mello, a junior, says he knows friends who opted not to come to school. But when he heard about the arrest, he felt better about going to class.
At first, I think it was actually a security issue, and then I think now people are just doing it to gain popularity and just to seem cool.
This is now the 2nd threat in the same 2 schools in the course of just 1 week. Last week, a 15-year-old freshman who officers say has intellectual disabilities was arrested after Davie police say he called the front office and threatened there would be a shooting.
You have enough trouble trying to get your child education and go to work and do the daily activities you need to do. It's just, I don't like it that the kids are maybe worried to go to school, that the teachers are maybe scared to be teaching in.
Again, that 12-year-old student is in the Juvenile Assessment Center right now, and she told police it was just a prank and she was put up to it. But whether these threats are credible or not, Davie police says it's still a 2nd-degree felony. In Davie, Carly Barnett, CBS 4 News.
According to CNN, abortion will be legalized in Queensland, Australia, after lawmakers in the Australian state overturned the 19th century legislation banning the procedure. The Legislative Assembly voted 50 to 41 to make termination available on request for up to the 22nd week of pregnancy. The bill also creates safe access zones of 150 meters around abortion clinics designed to protect women from harassment by anti-abortion protesters. Abortion has been illegal in Queensland since 1899 and was punishable by up to 7 years in prison because it was classified as an offense against morality in its criminal code.
Rose Mukidi is recovering from severe malnutrition. She's 6 months old and for the last 3 has been on a special diet mix given to her by a non-profit organization. Her mother, Kisombe Kafuti, also has 2 other children and a younger sister to think about. She herself is a teenager and has not been eating well. They're some of the hundreds of thousands Congolese who've been displaced by conflict.
My husband was killed when we were running away from Kasai. I don't know where my parents are. I had to travel with the children and did not have enough to feed them on the way.
They come to this feeding center in Kikwit with others who fled from violence in Kasai in Central Democratic Republic of Congo. Fighting between a rebel group called Kamoina Nsapo and government forces began in 2016 and ended last year. The Catholic Church says at least 3,000 people were killed.
About 25,000 people displaced from Kasai are now living here in Kikwit. Some are staying with host families, others roughing it out on their own or in camps for the displaced, with not enough food to eat and little means of getting home.
On this day at the center, food is a plate of dry rice, and there's hardly enough for everyone. Sick children and orphans are given priority. The rest will have to wait for another day. Serge Ngunza runs the center. He says selecting who gets to eat is the hardest part of his day.
This is an everyday situation. We would like to feed everyone, but we can't because we don't have the resources and get very little humanitarian assistance. We are trying our best with the little we have.
The United Nations Children's Agency says about 2 million children in the country are acutely malnourished. More than 6 million have stunted growth. Many live in remote areas, some which are still in conflict. Humanitarian budget cuts have made it difficult for aid workers to get to them.
When you have a shock, when you have a situation that the family can not feed the children, they cannot go to a school, they cannot go to the health centers, and they have a lot of disease, they don't have access to water, then you have acute malnutrition.
In Kikwit, 8,000 children with signs of malnutrition are on a government health watch list. Centers like this can only monitor the progress of some of them. Many live too far away and have no way of getting help. Catherine Soy, Al Jazeera, Kikwit, Democratic Republic of Congo.
In a sparse room in central Djibouti, Wasila Ahmed, Abdulaziz Abdullah and their 7 children sit out the war in Yemen. They're safe but destitute and scarred for life by the horrors they say they've witnessed.
We couldn't stay. There was a wedding in our village. During the celebrations, airplanes came and dropped bombs on it. 45 people were killed. The whole place was demolished and people blown to pieces. They couldn't tell who was who. People brought a bucket and we picked up pieces of flesh and bone. His mother was one of them. We lost so many relatives at once, so fast. We didn't want that to happen to our children.
But to escape meant a grueling 14-hour boat ride across the Red Sea.
I have 7 children. We understand how it is. I got scared. The killing began near us. Bullets began flying around, and my children were very scared, so I took them to the coast. On that night, there was heavy bombardment of a military base on the outskirts of town. The kids did not stop crying all night. I found a fishing boat, and they said they were headed for Djibouti. It was a very windy day, very high waves. My kids got sick and threw up a lot.
The family ended up at this remote refugee camp in Obok, but the hot, dusty desert environment aggravated the asthma of their baby daughter, forcing them to seek better treatment in Djibouti's capital. Around 5,000 Yemeni refugees live in the city. The UN runs an advice centre here, but it doesn't have the resources to pay for health care or anything else.
They come here and explain their case. They don't know what is or isn't possible, and the hardest thing, basically, is getting them to understand.
It's clearly very frustrating for Abdulaziz. Like most refugees here, he'd rather go home to Yemen, but he tells us he can't do that until the situation changes. Bernard Smith, Al Jazeera, Djibouti.
احنا نازحين الآن في المنطقة هذه، لا زوجي يعرف يشتغل ولا هنا يعرف يهاب أي أمل، ده هو كيفنا والعيال جياع. إن شاء الله نسوي تغذية، احنا نازحين في مدينة الخوخة ولا يعرف هنا يهاب أمل، أمله كله هناك في الجبلية.
المرض سوء التغذية الوخيم والمرض سوء التغذية بشكل عام موجود، بس ما كانش بهذه الصورة. بهذه الصورة زاد الآن مع وجود عدد غفير من النازحين والظروف المعيشية التي يعيشها النازحين.
Last week, Mbame Bekele came face to face with men who said they were English-speaking separatist fighters. They accused him of supporting and spying for the French-dominated government, and he was to be punished.
And he said, there's two options. You will choose one now. I should use one on your body, gun or machete. I said machete, and give the hand. So I sat, then I turned my face like this, then I put the hand like this. Just here, chop. I turned and made my half hand beside me.
Fighting in Cameroon's southwest and northwest started in 2016 when English speakers in the two regions accused the French-dominated government of marginalization. The Anglophones make up about 20% of Cameroon's 24 million population. A group of small fighters took up arms against the government, demanding independence. It's not clear how many fighters the secessionist groups have, but some estimate the number to be about 1,000. And as they continue to battle the government, it's the civilians who are caught up in the middle. More than 200,000 people have been displaced because of the fighting. Many say they fled their homes out of fear of being attacked in a conflict they want no part in.
They were shooting. Once in a while they were shooting, and even when I went they were shooting, and I had to relocate to another village.
But not all those who are living in this conflict region were able to escape.
For the past about a year, it's intensified. We've had scores of people coming in after injury. Sometimes we do all the best we can, but at the end of the day, we can still save them. However, some of them are brought already dead, and in that instance, they are taken directly to the mortuaries.
Aid groups say at least 400 people have been killed. Both sides of the conflict have been accused of atrocities, but Buya's government says it's working to keep civilians safe.
It's not a conventional war which can easily be contained. Your neighbor may get up in the morning and decide to settle scores with you in the name of separatists. We took some draconian measures to reduce the rate of kidnappings.
Mbame says he'll still stay in Buya because he has nowhere else to go. But in a conflict revolving around languages, he doesn't know who to speak to or what to say to keep his family safe. Hiba Morgan, Al Jazeera, Buya, Cameroon.
Korea
and the DPRK and also the United Nations Command have held their first three-way talks to discuss disarming the heavily fortified border area. As an initial step, both South Korea and the DPRK are seeking to pull out 11 guard posts within the 1 kilometer radius of the military demarcation line by the end of this year. And the meeting was planned during last month's Inter-Korean Summit in Pyongyang. Both sides had agreed to establish a no-fly zone near the border and the gradual removal of landmines and guard posts within the DMZ.
China's activities in the South China Sea are once again the target of criticism from Washington. En route to Vietnam for talks, U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis told reporters the U.S. remains, quote, highly concerned with continued militarization of features in the region. There was swift rebuke from Beijing.
Like any other country in the world, China's peaceful construction activities on its own territory, including the deployment of necessary defense facilities, are the exercise of the right to self-insurance and self-defense of sovereign states under international law. This has nothing to do with militarization.
The exchange comes 2.5 weeks after a U.S. guided missile destroyer, the Decatur, sailed within the territorial limit claimed by China. The Chinese Defense Ministry says a Chinese naval ship reacted to identify the U.S. ship and warn it off. Washington says the Decatur had to maneuver at the last minute to avoid a collision after the Chinese warship came within about 40 meters. The incident occurred in the Nansha Island chain, known in the U.S. as the Spratlys. The chain is claimed by China and the Philippines, as well as several others. On Thursday, negotiators from China and the Philippines will gather for their third consultation over concerns in the region, as well as efforts to cooperate on joint oil and gas exploration. After initiating an international tribunal case against Beijing over its territorial claims, Manila's leadership is now choosing to engage. In August, foreign ministers of Southeast Asia and China agreed to a single draft document to form the basis of talks on a code of conduct for the South China Sea. But Vietnam reportedly called for countries to stop building military installations on islands there, the strongest opposition to Beijing's activities.
While the U.S. says it does not take sides in the territorial disputes within the South China Sea, it often does send its ships to sail within the territorial boundaries claimed by China as a sort of message to Beijing that it does not respect its sovereignty claims over that area. And Washington says it will continue to do these freedom of navigation operations in the future. Jessica Stone, CGTN, Washington.
أنا ما تأثرت على الموقف، يعني ابني راح وكذا ودفنته بإيدي، ما تأثرت على الموقف قد البيت، يعني راح كل شيء أمل عندي، أنا كنت عاقد أملي إنه أنسى تراني وعيالي بهالبيت، راح كل شيء هسه، الحمد لله عايشين.
إحنا كنا بجنة ربنا ودحق العدد دحق صار بينا، قمنا نشحذ مية، أنا والمدام نبكي. طيب هذا أنا صار عمري 70 فوق 70، أنا أقدر أشيل هذا؟ ما أقدر.
Terrorists in the Gaza Strip launched a rocket before dawn that crashed into a home in the southern Israeli city of Beersheva, nearly 30 miles from Gaza. A mother and her 3 children were safe because they had gone to the bomb shelter when the warning sirens sounded. In response, the IDF said Israeli planes struck more than 20 Hamas targets, including a terror tunnel which crossed into Israel, and a factory used to manufacture components to build tunnels. The IDF also released a video showing a terror squad setting up a launching pad, loading rockets, and the IDF strike on the squad. The rocket attack came a day after Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman said he is pressing for upgraded military action to quiet the situation in Gaza. He said, "My position is very clear. We must deal a heavy blow against Hamas. This is the only way to return the situation to its previous state and to reduce the level of violence to nearly zero."
Hamas isn't trying to achieve any truce with Israel. Hamas is trying to achieve political aims by using violence. This is what terrorist organizations do.
IDF spokesman Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus said Hamas is trying to involve the international community.
What they're doing is sending Palestinian civilians forward, causing them to endanger themselves by attacking Israel, and then hoping that these civilian casualties will generate or garner international interest in what's happening and perhaps alleviate the situation in Gaza.
A second rocket was also apparently launched at Tel Aviv and landed in the Mediterranean. It's the first time a rocket was launched toward Tel Aviv since the 2014 Gaza war. The rocket attack was the latest in escalating violence, which has seen Palestinian rioting along the Gaza border for nearly 7 months. Karen Kayemet L'Israel, the Jewish National Fund, also said attacks from arson balloons and kites from Gaza since April have destroyed more than half of the forested areas surrounding Gaza. Political leaders are calling for Israel to take tougher action and not allow Hamas to erode Israel's deterrence. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And now let's turn to western Afghanistan, where officials say at least 18 soldiers have been killed in Taliban raids on 2 military posts. The country's defense ministry said the militants also suffered casualties and reinforcements had now been sent to the area of the attacks. The latest killings in the restive country come ahead of next week's parliamentary elections, for which the government is laying on extra security.
The U.S. military claims 60 terrorists have been killed in recent operations they were spearheading.
Terrifying moments for people in Australia. A warplane flies way too low, coming only feet away from some of Brisbane's highest skyscrapers. See for yourself. A Royal Australian Air Force Boeing C-17 plane is seen coasting above the river towards a building, then veers left at the last second, narrowly missing the building while people inside are heard freaking out. Are you kidding me? The flyby was part of Brisbane's River Fire event, an annual fall celebration. The Australian Air Force issued a statement this week saying it was a planned exercise and was fully supervised by air traffic control. Still, people witnessing this were scared. Some called the stunt 9/11 type stuff. One person commented on social media saying, quote, "All it would take is a small mistake and those buildings and people would be toast." Another person said, while it's a cool maneuver, that could have gone very, very, very wrong. For Global One, I'm Julie Edvar.
Сейчас война чувствуется не меньше, но просто меньше напряжения. То есть можно чуть-чуть подрасслабиться, но все равно, когда постреливают, конечно, страшновато. Потому что, опять же, вот эти вот все воспоминания с 2014 года, как бы было мне 13 лет, но это все по-другому воспринималось.
В нашей школе каждый месяц проводится эвакуация. Это не только эвакуация к обстрелам, это эвакуация к пожарной безопасности. Каждый месяц мы спускаемся. Для чего мы это тренируем? Во-первых, чтобы это все происходило оперативно и быстро, то есть чтобы дети были к этому приучены. Во-вторых, чтобы дети не паниковали в таких ситуациях.
Ну, в принципе, с Красноуровки можно пешком уйти в ДНР, но останешься ли ты жив, это никто не знает. Тут недалеко, и поэтому вот часть города, которая находится ближе к Донецку, к востоку туда, в некоторых районах, например, там даже возле жилых домов по траве ходить нельзя, а люди там живут. И поэтому вот туда я, в принципе, не хожу гулять.
What is that, a ladder?
Some kids may have a fire truck themed birthday, but not like this. Then again, not many kids have a story like Jackson's. It started on the morning of his 3rd birthday party.
I started receiving text messages from different families saying that their children were sick and they can't come. So out of the 8 families that we invited, 7 of them ended up canceling. between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 a.m.
Jackson had been talking about his birthday all week. It was a shimmering light following Hurricane Florence that had just touched down on his area. Jackson's mom says some of the party attendees were probably sick from the storm's aftermath, and she didn't have hard feelings about the cancellations.
If my child was sick, I wouldn't let them go to the birthday party and spread germs.
Jackson's mom called the fire department to see if they could help.
She asked, if it'd be possible maybe to make it up, she could bring them up for a show and tell, show a couple of the trucks. And I was like, yeah, sure.
Having kids himself, the fire captain jumped into action. His fire station, along with 2 others, threw Jackson an impromptu surprise party.
They literally saved the day. They save the day all the time with fires and medical stuff. But they saved my son's birthday, and this is something he'll never forget.
Happy birthday to you.